What is up, people of the internet? It is Pastor Alex back at you with another video, and we are continuing in our series where we are diving deep into Mark 13. Today, we're going to be looking over verses 5 through 6, and let's get into it. But before we do, actually, make sure you like, subscribe, comment, help us get this out to as many people as possible. We want to show our ministry, Christ Redemption Church, our mission is to share the gospel through worship, word, and inclusion. And we're very different from a lot of churches in the surrounding area. We're very small group minded and family. We try to meet people where they are and Jesus without barriers. We often go out to eat afterwards and just have a lot of fun together and pool parties and what have you. But let's get into it. So again, we're going to be looking at verses 5 through 6. It says, "And Jesus answering them began to say, 'Take heed that no one deceives you, for many will come in my name, saying, I am he, and will deceive many.'" So I've got my notes here. These verses are warning. Jesus is warning his disciples not to be deceived, because it comes right after them asking a question where it says, "Tell us, when will these things be?" About the prophecy of, the temple destruction. We've talked about that in prior videos. Go check that out. But they say previously in the verse, it says, "Tell us, when will these things be? And what will be the sign when all these things will be fulfilled?" And Jesus is warning them not to be deceived. So what is he warning them about? That's the question. Who, what? And then verse 6 tells us who that is. Verse 6 is the warning of who. It says, "For many will come in my name," Jesus' name, "saying, I am he, I am the Savior, I'm the Messiah, and will deceive many." Many will come in his name. It's a warning about false messiahs or claiming to be Jesus, that in his second coming. There are several verses pointing to this idea of the false messiah, and it's also connecting back to the false prophet verses as well. What is a false prophet? So you have Deuteronomy 13, verses 1 through 5 that point to false prophets. You've got Jeremiah 29, verses 8 through 9, Ephesians 5, verse 6, Colossians 2, verse 8. So obviously it's continually repeating and pointing to false prophets and false savior, false people speaking for God, and it's like peppered throughout the Old Testament, the New Testament. So let's kind of get an idea of what false prophets are. They are someone who tries to get you to worship other gods, other religions, step away from your faith. Sometimes this is a test from God, as depicted in different verses. Sometimes he will test you in that. And it tells us to have nothing to do with them. The Bible tells us to have nothing to do with these false prophets. If they can, obviously if they stand on what they say. Or, going back to my first point, someone who tries to get you to worship other gods, or pulls you to follow traditions of men in rules of the world and not according to Christ. So these two verses are warnings and pointing you back to the Old Testament. Jesus was Jewish. He relied on the documents, the texts from the Old Testament, and he always pointed back to those whenever he was instructing, because that was the culture, that was what they would have understood, and that was the law of God. And so this is heavy in pointing people to say, hey, be careful who you trust. Be careful who you listen to. Be careful with who you believe. And so, with that, I want to leave you and hope that this series is helping you as we dive deeper into Mark in these smaller videos. And if you have any questions, please leave something below in the comment section, and be happy to address that. And I'll see you next time. We're going to be going into verses 7 and the ones beyond, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.